So while we're waiting for another, let me see, 2 or 3 minutes before we start by requesting the Dharma, for those of you here, I'm thinking of starting a new class, and maybe you all can share your ideas or opinions. My idea is to start a new class on the Pure Land, but it's not so much me doing all the talking, but more of a discussion, like how Shufu used to do. For example, he would read a text or get someone to read something, and then he would ask people what they thought that the text meant, and this way, he said that this would we rely on group wisdom, and if there's anything in the end that's not very accurate, Shufu will correct them. Um, and the idea for the class is to understand the Pure Land through the Noble Eightfold Path. Why the Noble Eightfold Path? Because the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, said that um, somebody asked him a question. Somebody who was familiar with all the different religions at that time asked the Buddha, he said, do any arhats exist in all the different teachings? Meaning, has anyone successfully ended birth and death? And the Buddha didn't answer him directly. How the Buddha answered was very interesting. The Buddha said, in any teaching, if there is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right view, right understanding, right effort, right concentration, right wisdom, the Buddha said that if any practice has the Noble Eightfold Path, or any religion or any belief, then you will find people who have successfully, he said, you'll find arhats, people who have successfully ended birth and death. And then the Buddha went on to explain how in his teaching, there exist the components of the Noble Eightfold Path. So in other words, every Dharma door that we practice, um, we have to understand it from the aspect of the Noble Eightfold Path. That means, do we understand it? Do we know how to practice? Do we know how to, for example, transfer merit to the Pure Land? And instead of everyone getting an idea of what the Pure Land is from a monk or from a nun, we get it directly from the text. We explore all the different Pure Land sutras and Pure Land shastras or commentaries, and from there we see what the patriarchs and the Buddhas themselves say, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas themselves say about the Pure Land practice. And my hope or my aim is that by doing that, people get a really solid understanding of Pure Land that's not based on culture. It's not based on, oh, I heard this from this monk, or that's what people say, but you become very confident in your understanding of the Pure Land because it comes straight from the text rather than popular conception or misconception or ideas about the Pure Land. Yeah, so that's the idea. I'm sorry you don't have time to respond because it's time. Miss Yap, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, but for those of you who think it's a good idea or not a good idea, you can type it into the chat box. Okay, so I'm going to hello everyone, welcome. I'm going to invite everyone to put our palms together as the Dharma is being requested. And I think everyone knows, yeah, we mute our microphones. Okay, so Miss Yap, I'm going to advance the slide, and when you're ready, please begin.
Yes, thank you. 恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮教导我们如何了生脱世离苦得乐，殊证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputoche. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back to our exploration of uh, the Dharma through the lens of the Sutra of the merit and virtue of the past vows of Medicine Master Vaidurya Light Tathagata, or as we commonly know it as Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. So we are on, for those of you who are new with us, this is actually class number 75. We started just at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And so I haven't kept track, but how long have we been having this class? A year and a half, if anyone knows. Pretty long. So this week is class 75. We've been having a break for about a month and a half, and now we are back. So we will now recite Medicine Master Buddha's name 7 times in English. So again, I'm going to invite everyone to join me in putting our palms together. Namo, quelling disasters, lending life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come, Medicine Master does come one. Okay, let's bring up today's PowerPoint slides. Okay. So we are on the section in the sutra where it talks about rebirth. And the last few classes, we have explored rebirth in the various realms, from the hell realm right up to, okay, let me advance the slide and continue speaking. Okay, so we have explored the various causes and conditions for someone to be born in the hell realms, and we went from the lowest hell realm, um, going up and then being reborn as hungry ghosts, and then animals, and then as humans. We haven't covered asuras yet. We'll do that when we get to the heavens. And we finished humans, and then we've also talked about the what's the word for it? The eightfold pantheon of spirit, gods and spirits. And in there we covered giant snakes or maharogas. We talked about let me see, yakshas. We talked about gandharvas. We talked about nagas or dragons. So today we have reached the level where we are going to talk about the gods. Okay, specifically gods of the heaven. But I have a surprise for everyone, because I always used to think that you can only find gods in the heavens, but that's actually not very true. Yeah. So okay, so that's where we are right now. If you look at on your screen and you see number 6 to 11, that's the heaven of the four kings, and then the next heaven above that is a Triumph Trimsha heaven, or the heaven of the 33, and then you have the Suyama heaven, the Tushita heaven. Tushita heaven is where I believe Manjushri Bodhisattva is there right now, before his next rebirth into the world, the Saha world, to become the next Buddha. But we won't be going into detail yet. So I'm just showing you this slide. Right now, we're going to go in a general direction of what devas are or what gods are. Let me have one slide. So Melinda said that the class started in April 2020. Oh, wow. So we've been having this class for 2 years. That's a long time. And in terms of the sutra, we haven't gone very advanced very much in the sutra, because this lecture is not, I say, it's not only about the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, but it's about whenever it gives us an opportunity to understand more about the Dharma. Okay, all right, let's move on. Okay, this is what Shufu has to say from a publication called the 10 Dharma Realms. Shufu says that beings of the 6 desire and the Brahma heavens practice the 5 precepts and the 10 good deeds. Planting seeds with outflows, they cannot terminate their transmigration. Okay, let me move back what the 6 desire and the Brahma heavens again. Okay, all right. If you look at 6 to 11, that's the desire heavens that Shufu just talked about. And then above it, if you look at number 12 to 27 and number 28 to 31, those are usually considered the Brahma heavens. They are the form and the formless heavens. Whereas where we are today, from number 6 to 11, those are known as the desire realm, because the gods there still have desires. And Shufu says that even though you are a god, either of the 6 desire heavens or the upper Brahma heavens, you still have outflows. And because you still have outflows, you haven't ended birth and death. You are still subject to being reborn and dying again. And how you get there is you practice the 5 precepts and the 10 good deeds. Okay. What Shufu says next is he says the heaven of the triple realms consists of the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. So that's what we just went through in the slide before. Shufu says the 6 desire heavens are heavens in the desire realm. Those are the heavens that are closest to us. And how you get to the heavens in the desire realm is very simple. You need the precepts, and you need blessings, meaning generosity. You don't need to practice samadhi to get to the 6 heavens of the desire realm, meaning you don't need to sit in meditation. You don't need to be able to enter the first dhyana, for example. So you don't need any meditation skill to enter the 6 heavens. So Shufu says, what are the 6 heavens in the desire realm? Those are the heavens of the 4 heavenly kings. the Triumtrimsha heaven, the Suyama heaven, the Tushita heaven, the Nirma Narati heaven, and the Paranimita Vashavatin heaven. So as we go, sometimes the spelling of the heavens will change because there's both Pali as well as Sanskrit spellings, and sometimes even within that there might be slight differences as well. Okay, all right. So what are devas? Okay, we are now looking at devas or the desire realm, which is the first 6 heavens. So it is said that devas resemble humans. They look like us. They have gender. That means they have both male and female devas. Female devas are usually called devatas, and then devas are male. But from now on, we just use the word deva to without specifying the gender. Devas still have sexual desire, means they have desire like just like us humans, and they also consume solid food. Their bodies are more refined and free of gross impurities, and they surpass humans in the 5 falling areas or the 5 qualities in terms of lifespan, in terms of their beauty. Devas are definitely a lot better looking than human beings. I don't think there will be a deva that is ugly. Let's put it this way. And it is said, it just came to my memory, so I don't have the reference, but I think one of the sutras, even the ugliest deva, how an actor is famous, but they have people following them. They have a lot of servants and help to do whatever they need to do. So they have a retinue. And finally, power. Power can be interpreted in many ways in terms of spiritual abilities. For example, they can fly, they can transform themselves. Okay, Ron just said that he has no sound. I hope everyone can hear me. If not, you've been listening to silence for the last 15 minutes. Can anyone respond? Can you hear me?
There was you were we could hear you. You were talking about the divas, and then all of a sudden, for the last, I don't know, maybe minute or two, there was no sound. That's why I put no sound.
Oh, okay. How about
So
everyone else? What do you also encounter what wrong? Now fine. Okay, what? Okay, can't ask you what you miss. Okay, shall I just continue, or do you want me to? Should I repeat? Because I still don't know if everyone couldn't hear or only Ron. Should I repeat or should I continue?
I think we missed the point.
The points. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me. Okay. Just let me see if my wire is connected well. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. I will repeat. Okay. So devas surpass humans in the 5 fallen qualities in terms of lifespan. They have a longer lifespan than us. In fact, the lifespans are so long, they think that they never die, and we'll come to that in a short while in the future slides. They are a lot better looking than human beings. It is said, I think there's a sutra, I can't remember because it just came to my mind. I just recall it as I was speaking right now. It is, you can safely say that the ugliest deva, okay, you take the most ugly deva, which there's no, in the first place, there's no such thing as an ugly deva, but say there is. And then you compare them to the best looking human being. The deva is definitely a lot better looking. There's no comparison. So that's how they surpass us in terms of beauty. In terms of happiness, devas do not, in the heavens, devas do not encounter any afflictions. Their lives are full of bliss and happiness. They also have more fame, but fame is not in terms of how we think, say someone is famous, where you say like an actor or singer where they're famous. But fame here means that they have a retinue. Everywhere they go, they have people following after them and people to support them. And they also have more power than us. And power here can has several meanings, one of which is spiritual power, okay, which means they can fly or they can transform themselves, that kind of spiritual power. The power also means they have influence over others, as in like their retinue. There are people who listen to them. Power can also mean self-mastery, meaning that they are more in control of their emotions and how they behave, their virtuous conduct compared to human beings, which if you compare to devas, we are a lot more wild, just like animals are a lot more wild compared to human beings, something like that. All right. Okay. All right, next slide. We can't really see devas. Devas are invincible to the human eye, as our visual consciousness is not refined enough to perceive them. Similarly, the devas of the six, oh, sorry, this is, let me see. Okay, yes, the devas of the 16 form heavens are invincible to the devas of the desire realm. So the devas of the desire realm are the 6 heavens that you could say are the closest to where we are, and then above them is the the 16 form heavens. So even the devas or the gods from the 16 form heavens are invincible to the devas of the desire realm, which in turn are invincible to human beings like us. All right. Devas they enjoy a spontaneous birth and they appear fully grown. This is like if you are reborn in the Pure Land, like in a lotus flower. It's not a conventional birth like human beings where you are born through the womb. So first of all, there's no suffering or affliction involved in experiencing birth. Secondly, there's no learning process at all. It's like waking up from a dream. You know, when you wake up from a dream, you are just you. Whereas human birth, born as a baby, we don't know anything. We can't feed ourselves. We take a long time to learn even how to sit up, how to how to walk, how to eat. If no one takes care of us, we die. You know, we have to learn how to talk, how to think, how to navigate ourselves in the world. Devas don't have that problem at all. When they are born, is like I said, it's just like when you wake up from a dream. You are fully formed. You're an adult. You know things. You don't have to learn everything all over again. Okay, it's a very convenient way of being born. Those with sufficient merit will have a very big palace and a retinue, right? And I think this retinue are not other gods. They are basically how you say, like some form of like heavenly servants. I'm not really sure. Maybe I can try to find out. But they have servants to do all the work for them. Their lifespans are limited, meaning they don't live forever, but their death is painless. However, and Shifu also says this, a few days before they pass, they have 5 signs that appear that tell them that they are going to die. First, their clothes get dirty. So apparently, if you are a heavenly being, your clothes never get dirty. Okay, your clothes are always clean. But near your death, they start to get soiled. And then the second thing happens is that their armpits begin to sweat. So I don't think you sweat at all as a heaven. And that's one of the ways where they are a lot more pure in their bodies than us. The third is they lose their glowing complexion, meaning their radiance. Devas actually reflect light, not reflect light, they shine light. Yeah, they're radiant in that way. And they begin to lose their radiance and become more and more dull. And they become restless. So Shufu has said before, devas are very calm. They can just sit down and they don't fidget, they don't move around, they are never uncomfortable. So they don't need to move around compared to say human beings where even if we sit for too long, and even whatever comfort we experience eventually becomes discomfort, and then we have to move or we have to fidget. Devas never experience that until they're about to die. Yeah. So it's very interesting about light, because in the Buddha, in one of the sutras, in the Anguttara Nikaya collection, book number 8 and Sutra number 64, the Buddha explained to the monks how during his meditation process, how he became aware of light. And then at first he didn't know what the light signified. And as he explored further in his meditation, he first perceived the light. Then he became aware that the light were actually forms, and the forms were the heavenly gods themselves. And then further in his meditation, he began able to speak to them and to learn about what kind of devas they were. Yeah. And then from his experience of recalling his past lives, he could also remember that sometimes he was born among the gods. And when it comes to light, there is a sutra called Sakka's Questions. If you want to look it up, it's under the Tathagata Nikaya. It's in the Pali Canon, DN number 21. So it's a very interesting story because Lord Chakra, which is the Lord Chakra, is the king or the chief god in the heaven of the 33. And the heaven of the 33 is one of the heavens that are closest to us. And Shufu says that this is the heaven, in Chinese we call Tigong, or God of Heaven. In other religions, like when they talk about God, like in Christianity, this is Lord Chakra is actually who they are referring to. Okay, so Lord Chakra wanted to see the Buddha, and he had a plan because it's not easy to go and see the Buddha. So he asked a Gandharva. What's a Gandharva? A Gandharva is one of the heavenly beings that play music. So in the sutras, it is described as when Lord Chakra wants to play music, wants to listen to heavenly music, he will light a special kind of incense. And Gandharvas are attracted to this kind of incense. We covered this a few classes ago when we talked about Gandharvas. So it's all on YouTube. Anyone wants to check that out, you can find out on YouTube. So when he wants to listen to music, he lights a special incense, and then the Gandharvas come and then they play their heavenly music. So Lord Chakra wanted to see the Buddha, and his plan was that he asked a particular Gandharva whose name was Panchasika to come. And Panchasika agreed, and he brought along his instrument, which is a yellow, the wood is called a balua wood. I'm not sure what kind of tree is that. But he has this special instrument called a lute, a L-U-T-E. It's not a wind instrument like a flute. A lute looks a lot like a guitar. Yeah, it looks a lot like a guitar. It has strings, and then you plug the strings. So Lord Chakra knew that the Buddha was meditating. And when the Buddha meditates, it's very, very hard to get the Buddha's attention or to get near to the Buddha. So his plan was to bring this Gandharva along, whose name was Panchasika, and to ask Panchasika to play his lute while the Buddha was meditating to get the Buddha's attention. So the story goes, or actually the sutra goes, that Panchasika then chose a place, a location that he said that he decided was not too near the Buddha because he didn't want to be rude, but not too far either. A position that was just right, not too near, not too far. And then he started playing a song, and he started singing to get the Buddha's attention. And this song was praising the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And let me see, what is the... So when Lord Chakra and this Gandharva came to see the Buddha, the place where the Buddha was, there was a tremendous light that shone over the location. And because Lord Chakra was there, and he the light came from him, from his body, and that really scared the villagers. So the villagers thought that the whole mountain was on fire. That's how bright the light was. Yeah. So that's the story about light and the Buddha. The Shaka's this particular sutra, Shaka's questions, is a very meaningful sutra, but it is off topic on what we have to discuss today. So maybe one day we will revisit this sutra. But I'm just introducing this sutra because I thought it was interesting that when Lord Shaka came to see the Buddha, how he got the Gandharva to play the music to get the Buddha's attention. But also he brought, wherever he was, the whole place lit up with light and it scared the villagers. Yeah. All right, next slide. Coming back to the gods, because of their blessings, the gods, Devas enjoy a long lifespan. They have beauty. They have a pleasurable existence that is free of suffering and abound in happiness. Their whole existence is one whole happiness trip. Their pleasurable existence leads them to think that it will last forever, lulling them into a heedlessness so that they never think of their mortality. As such, they do not have a sense of urgency or need for the Dharma. So because their lives, I think it's kind of like, say, someone who is so rich that you never have to worry about money. And maybe you have a very pleasant personality and you are in good health and you get along with people, everyone's your friend, and you don't really experience life the way most people do, which is a combination of happiness and suffering. For you, everything goes smoothly and it's just happiness. You don't really experience afflictions. Then the Dharma becomes less important. So that's what it means about being born as a Deva. Devas get everything they want. They're always content, not because they how you say, are patient with things that they don't have. It's not that at all. It's because they everything that they want they can get. There's nothing that they lack. Okay, so Ron has a question. Can Devas hear the Dharma? Ron, that's actually my next slide. Okay, so just wait a few minutes and your question shall be answered. Yes, so Devas tend to think that they will live forever. And isn't that kind of the same for humans as well? So Ron, just wait for a while. I will come to the next slide soon. Actually, humans don't really have an excuse because we experience just as much affliction and suffering as we experience happiness. But we go about our everyday lives never thinking about our mortality. For example, when we celebrate birthdays, we congratulate people on being a year older, but it doesn't occur to us that we're actually a year nearer our death, right? Either we know and we ignore it, or we don't even think about it. So instead of feeling, say, like as Buddhists, as Shifu disciples, instead of feeling grateful that we are still alive so that we can continue our practice in the Dharma, because we haven't achieved our vows, our intentions yet, and feel a sense of urgency, we are kind of like the gods. The question of our mortality does not really have an impact on us because we try to ignore our own mortality. It's not, of course, it's not a nice thing to think about, but in the proper way, it's actually very useful for the Dharma because it spurs us, it gives us a reason to practice well because we are planning for our future. But most humans, hopefully not us who are listening in, but most humans tend to push that thought far away. In other words, just like the Devas who think that they never die, they will never die, we always think even if people close to us pass away, it is not our time yet. Yeah, it is never our time. Our time will come one day, but not right now because it is not our time, never our time. And that goes on from one day to the next, to the next, and to the next. Yeah. So Devas have that shortcoming. I guess it's not just them, it's us as well. Although Devas have a good excuse because their lifespans are so long, whereas compared to us, us compared to them is like comparing an ant to a human being. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. All right, Ron, pay attention. However, Devas may recall or experience the Dharma in 4 ways. Okay, what are the 4 ways? One is more fortunate Devas may recite passages to them. What are more fortunate Devas? Well, say if right now we have experience in the Dharma, and then when you're born as a god, usually when you're born as a god, you can kind of remember your past lives. I'm not sure if that's a given for every single Deva, because there are stories where after being reborn as a Deva, they repay the kindness of a monk or monks who have helped them before, so they do remember. But I don't think that happens to every Deva. Anyway, a fortunate Deva in this case is someone who's been reborn in the heavens, and they have a memory of the Dharma. So they start sharing the Dharma with their fellow gods. So that's number 1. And number 2, a bhikkhu with psychic power may preach to them. So this would probably be a monk. We have wonderful stories about how monks sometimes they take their afternoon naps in the heavens. So monks with their people with spiritual abilities who can travel to the heavens, then can speak the Dharma to the gods. Number 3, some Devas are at once enough to teach on their own account. So they can, through their own practice, they carry on the habit of practice from before they were a god to when they are reborn as a god, and from their own insight, they can teach. These are usually the higher level gods, or someone exceptional like Lord Chakra, who is the king of the heaven of the 33. I don't think this would happen to a regular god. Yeah. And then number 4, some may recover old memories by speaking with other devas who were previously bhikshus. This is kind of similar to number 1, where devas who have forgotten, but because they speak to people who can still retain the Dharma, it reactivates the memory. At least that's what I think it thinks. I'm not 100% sure. But like I said before, if you look at the last line, it says, if they are fortunate to hear the Dharma, they mostly become afraid and cry out, we thought we were everlasting, not subject to change, but it is not so. Meaning they realize that they too will one day die, or basically confronted with their mortality. So for those of you who are familiar with the story of the Prince Gautama leaving the palace, and which led to him renouncing his home life, that story is a story of the prince encountering his mortality. And not just his mortality, but the mortality of everyone that he cared for. And which was the reason why he decided to find a way to end birth and death, or to see if he could end birth and death. He wasn't sure, but he wanted to find a way. And he told, and his reasoning was this. He says that even though I enjoy the best of what life has to offer as a prince, kind of like a deva, he says eventually I'm going to die one day. It's impermanent. And not just die, but everyone that is dear and pleasing to me will also die. So what's the point of enjoying only to lose it all in the end? Or how can I even enjoy myself if I know that one day I too will die? So I've used this example before. It's kind of like, if you have to go on a trip, you have to drive a car and the car is not reliable at all. The brakes may work half the time, but half of the other time when you press the brake pedal, you may not stop. The steering wheel may come off in your hands and you can't steer. how would that make you feel? So that's a metaphor for impermanence, meaning you can't rely on, you cannot be confident in that. So that's what the Buddha, that's what the prince saw in himself, in his own mortality. And so when faced with his mortality, the prince decided to do something about it. So the counterpart is then for us to reflect on ourselves. We too are faced with our own mortality. There's a sutra that calls it the messengers. When we see other people die, that's a message, a divine message to us, to remind us of our own mortality. What do we do about it? So that's for all of us to reflect for ourselves. Okay. So now we go on to a sutra. This sutra is from, I mentioned just now, the Anguttara Nikaya. For those of you who do not know what the Anguttara Nikaya is, the Anguttara Nikaya is a collection of sutras that the Buddha spoke, but it is classified into numbers. So you have the book of ones, you have the book of twos, you have the book of threes. I think it goes up to 8. I can look it up. Yeah, I think it goes up to 8 or 12 or something like that. And what it does is that if the Buddha talks about 4 things, it goes into the book of 4s. If the Buddha talks about 5 things, they classify it under the book of 5s. So right now, if you look at the screen, it says AN, which is short form for Anguttara Nikaya, 4 ... Oh, how do you call that? I don't know what you call that. 2 dots. 4.33, meaning it is Sutra number 33 in the book of 4, from the book of 4s. And if you look at the numbers in the text, you have 4 bullet points. That's why it's from the book of 4s. So this sutra is about the Buddha going to heaven to teach. All right. So this is just an excerpt. It's not the entire sutra. So this is the Buddha speaking. So I'm going to just put my palms together. The Buddha says, "So too, bhikkhus, when the Tathagata, or in other words, the Buddha, when the Tathagata arises in the world, an Arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in truth, knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, unsurpassed trainer of persons to be tamed, teachers of devas and humans, the enlightened one, the Buddha, he teaches the Dharma thus. Number 1, such is personal existence. In other words, such is the cause for rebirth. And number 2, such, I think there's a typo, such is the origin of personal existence, or such is the origin of the cause of rebirth. Number 3, such is the cessation for the cause of rebirth. And number 4, such is the way to the ending or the cessation of the cause of rebirth. In other words, these are the 4 noble truths in a different way. Okay. And then in the next slide, we have the Buddha. This is still the Buddha speaking. He says, when those devas who are long-lived, beautiful, abounding in happiness, dwelling for a long time in lofty palaces. Why lofty palaces? Because heavenly palaces are really great. They're great in many, many reasons. One of the reasons is that wherever, if you are a god and wherever you go, your whole palace travels with you. You don't have to book a hotel or book an Airbnb and pack your clothes, like decide what to bring or what not to bring and lug all your heavy luggage. Your whole palace goes with you. Yeah. So your whatever favorite things you have always travels with you. Yeah. Very, very convenient. Okay. Lofty palaces. Here the Tathagata's teaching of the Dharma. For the most part, they are filled with fear, a sense of urgency and terror. Thus, it seems that we are actually impermanent, though we thought ourselves permanent. It seems that we are actually transient, though we thought ourselves everlasting. It seems that we are actually non-eternal, though we thought ourselves eternal. It seems that we are impermanent, transient, non-eternal, included in personal existence. In other words, even as gods, they too will die. Okay? All right. And then the Buddha continues in verse. The Buddha says, when through direct knowledge, the Buddha, the teacher, the peerless person in this world with his devas, sets in motion the wheel of Dharma. sets in motion the wheel of Dharma means starts to speak the Dharma or teach the Dharma. He teaches personal existence, its cessation, the origin of personal existence, and the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to the coming down of suffering. So personal existence means the way we are, like how you, so for the gods, it will be how you become a god and the lifespan of a god and what happens to a god after when they die. And there are many sutras that describe the Buddha explaining to the gods. He says that he picks up a bit of sand or earth from the ground and he says that the number of gods that are reborn in the lower realms, meaning the hell realm, animal realm, and the hungry ghost realm, he says are far greater than being born in the higher realms. And the amount of earth in the amount of dirt on the ground compared to the amount of dirt in his fingernail shows the chance of the chance of a god falling into the lower realms is represented by the amount of dirt on the earth, and that really scares the devas. The Buddha continues is, then even those devas with long lifespans, beautiful, ablaze with glory, become fearful and filled with terror, like beasts who hear the lion's roar. It seems that we are impermanent, not beyond personal existence, they say, when they hear the word of the Arahant, the stable one who is fully freed. Okay, let's move on. The word deva itself, all right, I found out it means to play and to shine. So we talked about devas being radiant, they radiate light. Okay, and to play meaning their life is so blissful. You know, devas don't have to work, not like humans. They don't have to earn a living through their own blessings, which they have planted, which they have generated from their past lives. They just enjoy their blessings. It's like being reborn. It's like being born with a $10 billion bank account, I guess, you know, something like that. It is related to the Latin word deus, which means God, and the Iranian devo, to which devil is derived. And that's very interesting because the figure that is considered the devil in Buddhism is Mara, and Mara is actually the king of one of the 6 heavens in the desire realm. Yeah, so Mara is actually a heavenly being. He doesn't live in the hells like down below and have to suffer like in how Christians have the devil in the hells, in all the fire and all that. No, in Buddhism, Mara is actually the king of one of the heavens. And when we get to that heaven, I'll introduce Mara. Rebirth into the Deva realms is accomplished principally by acts of generosity and virtuous behavior, particularly when the giver makes an aspiration towards such rebirth. Okay, which is very interesting because the way you get, it has a connection to do with how you get born in the Pure Land. Okay, and we'll get there. But before, okay, let me see. Let's just advance to the next slide first. Okay, so this sutta, again from the Anguttara Nikaya collection, but this is from the Book of 8, Sutra number 35. This is the Buddha speaking again. The Buddha says, someone gives a gift to an ascetic or a Brahmin. Ascetic meaning a monk or a nun. Brahmin, in India, the word Brahmin at that time means someone very similar to someone virtuous, say a lay person, but very, very virtuous. Maybe someone who holds the Bodhisattva precepts. We can use that understanding. So the Buddha says someone offers food and drink, clothing and vehicles, garlands, scents, and unguents, bathing, dwelling, and lighting. Whatever he gives, he expects something in return. So this is the person doing the giving. Okay, he gives, but he knows that he's giving because he wants something back. And this person says he has heard the Devas ruled by the 4 great kings are long-lived, beautiful, and abound in happiness. It occurs to him Oh, with the breakup of the body after death, may I be reborn in companionship with the Devas ruled by the 4 great kings. Okay, so there's this person who makes offerings to monks or to lay people, but virtuous lay people. That means examples of very, very good people. But he has a motive. It's not pure giving like how the Bodhisattvas give, but this person gives for his future, for his future rebirth, and his intention is to be born in the heaven of the 4 great kings, which incidentally is the closest heaven to us, according to the sutras. All right. So what happens? The Buddha says he sets his mind on this, fixes his mind on this, and develops this state of mind. The aspiration of his resolve on what is inferior, not develop higher, leads to rebirth there. With the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in companionship with the Devas ruled by the 4 great kings. And that is for one who is virtuous, I say, not for one who is immoral. The heart's wish of one who is virtuous succeeds because of his purity. Okay, this is very interesting because when the Buddha describes, he says, setting his mind, fixing his mind, and develops this state of mind. In other words, it is very similar to making a vow. Making a vow reflects your intention, the reason why you do something. Okay, or it's like in Pure Land practice, it says that whatever, one of the recommendations for Pure Land practice is they say whatever good things you do, transfer the merit to be reborn in the Pure Land, right? Has anyone heard of that before? I hope. Okay, I hope all of you have heard of that before. They say when you do something good, you transfer the merit to the Pure Land so that you reborn there. So what it actually means is the reason behind what you do is because you want to be born in the Pure Land. So in other words, why do you hold the 5 precepts? Have all of us ever thought about why do I hold the 5 precepts? Or why do I listen to the Dharma? Or why do I join certain sessions? Or why do I bow to the Buddha? What is that? So basically, making vows or transferring merit is precisely that. The reason we do certain things, the reason for our practice, the reason for being generous, the reason for creating our blessings and increasing our virtue. That's what it all means. Okay? All right. So the other parts of the sutra, which we are not going to cover today, the Buddha talks about, say, someone who wants to become rich. He says, in my next life, I want to become rich. And he does the same thing. He makes offerings. Then, because of the intention set in his mind, he is reborn as a rich person. And conversely, for someone who wants to be reborn in the 6 desire heavens, the upper heavens, for example, let's say you want to be reborn in the Triumtrimsha heaven, okay, or the Tushita heaven. Say you want to be reborn in the Tushita heaven because you want to get close to Manjushri Bodhisattva. So you have to translate that vow into understanding what that means. So so someone who understands will say, oh, it's not easy to get to the Tushita heaven because you have to generate a lot of blessings. So that means that they have to transform themselves to be more generous, to be more helpful to living beings, to be able to emulate the role of the behavior of gods so that you can end up as a god. That's kind of what it means. Same goes for the Pure Land. You want to end up in the Pure Land, you have to emulate the conduct of beings in the Pure Land. That's how you end up in the Pure Land. All right? Okay. So now, in the beginning, I said there is a kind of like a surprise I have. Okay, this is a surprise. The Devas, the gods of the desire realm, okay, there are various levels, not just various heavens, okay, but there are various different kinds of gods. Okay, what are different kinds of gods? First, you have the Earthbound Devas or the Bhuma Devas. What are they? They are the gods that you find on earth. These are not gods that are reborn in the heavens. Why they are not reborn in the heavens? Because they have blessings and merit, or they have blessings or merit, and they have virtue, but they don't have enough. So they don't get to be reborn in the heavens, but they are still considered gods. Okay? And they are born on earth. Where do you find them? You find them on earth. We still can't see them because they are invincible to us. They have longer lifespans than us. They are better looking than us, but they're just not born in the heavens. And then the next category of what are considered also gods are sky gods or cloud gods. In Pali, we call them Valahaka Devas. And then the third category are, you could say, what we normally think of as gods in the heavens, which are the Devas or the 6 heavenly abodes, the 6 heavens of the desire realm. Okay, so what are these gods of earth? Okay, if you have been following the classes all the way from the hell realm right up to now where we are, you will realize that there's a category missing, especially if you're Malaysian. Okay, especially if you're Malaysian, you realize that there's a category that hasn't been covered yet. Okay, we've covered Gandharvas, Kinraras, who are those that play music. We've covered the dragons. We've covered Yakshas, which are the, like how you say, more like ghostly demons, I guess, or sometimes they are good yakshas, but usually yaksha means like more like a what's the word for it? Not giant. What's kind of ugly spirits, kind of like that. Augurs, yeah, augurs, or if I'm pronouncing that correctly, trolls. You know, those kind of spirits are yakshas. What else did we cover? Great python spirits or maharogas, you know, big, giant snakes. Okay, but there's one category, and if you're Malaysian, you're familiar with this that we haven't covered, and that's the category of, like, when we say Datokong. I don't know if there's an English translation for Datokong, but like guardian spirit or deity, you know, guardian, not garden, guardian deity. Like sometimes you see very small temples who pray to a local spirit. So we tend to call them Datokong or spirits. What else we call them? What? Okay, if anyone knows of any terms that we use, either unmute your mic and share, or you can type it into the chat box. Yeah. So I have a story, okay, about someone who has had an encounter with a guardian spirit like this. So there's an island in Malaysia off the coast of Malacca. Malacca is on the west coast, and this island is called Pulau Besar. Okay, Pulau Besar in Malay, in English, it literally means big island or large island. Anyone who has ever visited Pulau Besar? Okay, anyone who has heard of Pulau Besar might be familiar with the legend. The legend is that there's a guardian spirit on Pulau Besar, and if you want to visit the place, you cannot consume pork and go to Pulau Besar. Why? Because when you consume pork, there will be a certain odor from your body, a certain smell from your body that will anger the guardian spirit or the god. So that's the legend. Okay. And so people who visit Pulau Besar, which is, because it's an island, it's accessible by boat, usually pay close attention to this. Anyway, that was my experience before when I found out about this island. So the story I have is, I once knew someone who worked in the travel industry, and her job was to promote tour packages. So when Pulau Besar had a resort built on the island, they invited her and her family to experience what the resort had to offer, in the hopes that she would recommend the resort to people who wanted to a place to have a vacation. So this lady and her family, they're all Muslims. They are Malay Muslims. And she told me her story that on her first night, they couldn't sleep. The family couldn't sleep. So they decided to walk onto the beach. The chalets that were built were all beachfront chalets. So they just walked out from the chalet and started walking at night. And they saw a figure, a white figure, wearing white robes. And the figure was very, very tall. Okay, she said that the figure was so tall that the head kind of disappeared into the sky and you couldn't see the head. All they could see was like the body. And this figure was out in the sea and it was coming towards the island. And she said it really, really scared her and her whole family because they all saw it. Okay, this huge white towering figure who was so tall, whose upper body disappeared or head disappeared into the clouds, floating towards the I don't know if the feet were in the ocean or not in the sea or not, but this figure was moving towards the island. They all ran. So she said she and her family, screaming, ran back to the chalet, locked the door, and that's how they stayed for the whole night. And the next day, they quickly checked out. Yes. Okay. So that's, I don't know if what they saw was the deva or guardian spirit or whatever it was, but I just thought it was very interesting to share. Okay. All right. Let's move on. What are Bhuma Devas or Earthbound Devas? Okay. This, okay, if you're wondering where I'm getting all this information from, there's a book called the Buddhist Cosmos, compiled by a monk who took all the information about all the different realms from all the sutras that he could get his hands on, and he compiled it into a book. If anyone's interested, let me know. I can send you a copy. Okay. So it says, Earth Devas are Devas with insufficient merit or virtue to be reborn in the 6 heavens of the desire realm. They are considered as the lowest form of a Deva. There are many different levels of happiness and power among the Earthbound Devas. So these Devas are not like the heavenly Devas where they enjoy a good life all the time. It varies. It says some are poor things, not nearly as wretched as the Petas. Petas are hungry ghosts, okay, which is a very miserable existence. So it says some of the devas are poor things, but not as bad as hungry ghosts. It says, but approaching that state. It says, while others are beings of great might and power. They prefer wild places, especially forests, to areas of human habitation. That means they like to stay away from human beings if possible. It says, although there are also devas who dwell in towns. So for anyone who's interested in stories such as this, okay, there's a collection. The Buddha shared a lot of stories about the spirit world, gods and spirits and monsters and goblins and all that. There's a collection called the Peta Watu. Okay, the Peta Watu is a collection of ghost stories, not because it's interesting, because it was meant to teach us about cause and effect, so we can avoid. Most of those stories have the reason why they were reborn as miserable beings. So it's to teach us about cause and effect, so that we can avoid planting the same causes to avoid that fate, that rebirth. Okay, what do I mean? Okay, there's a particular story. Let me see if did I get that. There's a particular sutra called I think it's the very first sutra in this collection of the Peta Watu. So it's about this man. He was the only son of a very, very rich family. Okay, his father was very, very rich, and this man the son had a very good personality, but he wasn't very smart. And the Buddha said that this man's name, the father's name, in the sutra is very unusual. It doesn't mention the son's name at all, but it mentions the father's name. Father's name is Mahadana Sati. And we know that Maha in Sanskrit or Pali means great, and then Dana is generosity. So I think his name takes after maybe his generosity of the father. I don't know. Mahadana Seti was the father's name. So anyway, they had so much money. The father and the wife thought that it was enough to last the son until he died. You know, they were under the impression that their wealth was enough for the son to use until his death. And because the son wasn't very smart, they decided not to put any stress on him by forcing an education on him. So meaning the son was uneducated. And they also found him a wife, probably very similar to the son, very easygoing nature. And he said that the wife was not aware of the Dharma, meaning didn't know about cause and effect, didn't know about the importance of generosity or precepts or virtue. So it is said that after the parents died, this man and his wife was very, very careless. And despite their great fortune, they became broke. And after they lost their fortune, he started borrowing money. And in the end, he couldn't pay back the money and he had to become a beggar. So when he was a beggar, he was taken advantage of by a group of robbers. And this group of robbers told him, they said, why do you have to suffer like this? Why don't you join us? We steal other people's property and wealth, and we enjoy the good life. So because he was kind of not very smart, he decided to join them. And the first time he joined them, they gave him the job of lookout. They gave him a huge stick and they put him outside the house that they were robbing. And they said that if anyone comes, you alert us. But because he wasn't very smart and people came, he didn't know what to do. And when people realized that the house was being robbed, he was captured. And when he was captured, the king sentenced him to death because he was part of the gang. So he was, on the day that he was sentenced to death, where he was supposed to be executed, they paraded him on the city streets. And at that moment, there was a dancer by the name of Sulasa who saw him and recognized him because when he was rich, she used to dance for him. And he was very generous with her, which is one of the reasons how he and his wife lost his fortune. They were very loose with the money. They gave money away freely. So this dancer Sulasa, saw him and felt pity for him. And so she sent him some sweets and some water and wrote a note for the executioner to not execute him until he had finished the sweets and had drank the water. So the man was given the sweets and water, and at that particular moment, he saw a monk. So what happened was that Mahamaggalayana knew what was going on, and he realized that this Mahamaggalayana is famous for his spiritual powers. So he realized that this man, if he were to die that day, because of his conditions and the causes that he had planted, he would be reborn in the hells. So he decided to create an opportunity to create an opportunity for this man to generate some blessings to escape the hells. So when the man was given the sweets and the water, Mahamaggalayana appeared in front of him. And the man, when he saw the monk, he said, I'm going to die. What use is there if I consume the sweets and the water? He said, I must as well generate some merit by giving it to this monk. So he offered it to Mahamaggalayana, who ate it before the execution took place. Okay, so Mahamaggalayana, his plan was that by doing this, this man would be reborn in the heavens, because being able to perform such an offering at that time, given the conditions he was under, would have gladdened the man's heart in such a way that he would be born in one of the 6 heavens. Okay. But just as the man was about to be executed, the man who knew that where the sweets and the water came from, remembered about the lady, the who gave him the sweets, and in his mind he had desire towards the lady, the dancer Sulasa. So because of his desire or his lust for the lady that arose just as his head was about to be chopped off, instead of being reborn in the heavens, in the actual heavens, he was born as a Earth Deva, as a tree spirit. So instead of having a heavenly palace, his home was actually a large banyan tree in the jungle. So if anyone wants to look this up, yes. So this is, I can confirm, this is the first story of the collection of ghost stories called the Peta Watu. Yeah, the very first one. Okay. Okay. Someone is asking how do you spell it? Is Petavatthu. Okay. All right. So we have run out of time. It's already 9 past 10. I have quite a few more slides which we will come to next week, where we talk about even among the Earth Devas, there are different kinds of Earth Devas. For now, are there any questions or anything anyone would like to share? For example, on the Datuk Kong or stories like that. Anyone?
Fasil, I have a question because earlier
Yes.
on you suggest that there's a discussion, right? Would it be easier if you actually forward the text of the discussion before we have it on the day, so that
Yes.
people like myself, I don't have much knowledge of it, so that I get a gist of whatever being discussed on that day in order to participate?
Okay, yes, thank you. So what Ms. Yap is referring to is earlier before the class began, I shared plans about a new class that we are going to have on the Pure Land, and the nature of the class is not like a lecture. Okay, for example, like today, this is more like a lecture where most of the speaking is done by me, and I respond to questions, and I read the text, and I select the text to be shared. There's one form of teaching that Shufu use and has been adopted at DRBU, and is also called close reading. That is based on more of a discussion where the text becomes the authority rather than the interpretation of the Dharma speaker. So, for example, if someone has an opinion, we always look back to what the text has to say. So that, in other words, instead of say like me right now being the authority, we go to the text. So for example, like this story that I'm sharing from the Petavatthu, we would have the actual I would send the Petavatthu to everyone. You can read it before. That's what Ms. Yap refers to, sharing it first. You can read it. And then when we come to the class, we discuss about it. So the class will be more on the Pure Land, and we'll be investigating the Pure Land from the perspective of the Noble Eightfold Path. Why the Noble Eightfold Path? Well, it's because the Buddha was asked a question before. The question was asked by a layman who was probably confused because during the Buddha's time, there were a lot of different spiritual teachers, a lot of different religions available to anyone. And so he asked the Buddha, he said that in all these different teachings, and he listed out all the teachers, he says, are there any arahants in those religions? Meaning, let me see how to phrase it. Meaning, if you follow any of those religions, can you end birth and death? And the Buddha did not answer him directly. The Buddha said that in any teachings, if there exists the Noble Eightfold Path, you will find arahants. And then the Buddha outlined how in the way the Buddha taught, there are people who have ended birth and death. So in other words, another way to understand this is that the Dharma door we all practice has to have the Noble Eightfold Path. If not, then uh, our understanding of the Dharma door is not enough. That means our view of our constant, how do you say? The Noble Eightfold Path has right view, right understanding, right effort, right concentration. Is basically an expansion of precept, samadhi, and wisdom. So, if for whatever Dharma door that we practice, if we don't understand it properly from the perspective of the Noble Eightfold Path, that means we are not practicing right. And being able to understand the Pure Land, not from, say, like me explaining what the Pure Land is, but directly from the various Pure Land texts that we have, meaning the Amitabha Sutra, the longer Amitabha Sutra. There's three main Pure Land sutras. There are commentaries by Pure Land patriarchs that explains Pure Land practice. So it is a way for us to understand Pure Land, to have Pure Land understanding and practice based on what the Buddhas and the patriarchs have to say. For example, from Shufu's commentary, rather than what we think the Pure Land is, or what people have told us what the Pure Land is, another monk or another nun, we go directly to the text. So the text becomes the authority. So that's the idea. Yeah. But for a class like that to happen, there has to be discussion. That means not everyone, I guess, will be discussing, but there has to be a group of people discussing on behalf of everyone as we analyze the text and figure out what the text means. Like, for example, transfer merit to the Pure Land. What does that really mean? You know, we always say transfer your merit to the Pure Land. But, you know, do we really know how do we transfer merit to the Pure Land? I mean, I did explain earlier, but something like that, you know, something that we take for granted that is there, but sometimes we just never pay enough attention for it to be really useful or for us to do it correctly. Yeah. All right. It's time. Let me pull up my slide so we can dedicate merit. Okay. This new class won't happen for a while, maybe in 1 or 2 months' time, but we will send out announcements. Okay. All right, I'm going to invite everyone to put our palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. And just before I do that, let me change my sound settings. Okay, you all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Okay, Amitofo.
Thank you, Dharma Master.